Hari Om. Om Gajananam Bhutaganadisevitam Kapitthajambo Phalasarabhakshitam Umasutam Shokavinashakaranam Namami Vigneshwara Padapankajam. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Welcome to DISHA 15, a new series of an inward journey to discover our inner strength and happiness through Bhagavad Gītā. Last week, we concluded the third chapter, Karma Yoga. Krishna gave a glimpse of both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga in second chapter. He elaborated Karma Yoga, the Jnana Yogyata sadhana, in the third chapter. Since Jnana Yoga, the moksha sadhana, is more important and needs a detailed explanation, Krishna dedicates fourth and fifth chapters to discuss this. Now, let us start with Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, the fourth chapter, with the verses 1 to 8, which deals with Avathāra Varnana. Here, Krishna, for the first time, declares openly that he is an Avathāra, with the verse, Ajopi san avyayatma bhutani mishvaro milsan prakrutim swam adhishtaya sambhavami atma mayaya. He confirms and reinforces it with the verses Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya and Paritranaya Sadhuna. Let me leave it to Dr. Satyanarayana to explain these wonderful set of verses. After the talk, we will have a teaching quiz session by Dr. Vasumati. Now, before Dr. Hegde sir give a prelude to the topic of the day, I invite Dr. Anupama ji to describe the Brahma bhavana in the verse 251 from Viveka Chudamani. Mritkaryam sakalam ghatadi satatam. Anupama madam.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Today's prayer is a Nididhyasana mantra from Viveka Chudamani, verse 251. Mritkaryam sakalam ghatadi satatam mrinmatrameva hitam tadvat sajjanitam sadatmakamidam sanmatramevakhilam yasmat nasti sataha param kimapi tat satyam sa atma swayam tasmat tatvamasi prashantam amalam brahmadvayam yet param. This mantra expresses the essence of Vedanta. First, the definition of Brahman as Sat, the pure existence, and the understanding that the entire creation is a superimposition of Nama and Rupa, meaning name and form, upon this Sat. In short, existence plus Nama Rupa is the creation of Srishti, and existence minus Nama Rupa is Pralaya or resolution. Remembering, existence or Sat all the while remains unchanged. Now, what does this have to do with me? If this unchanging, undisplaceable existence or Sat is everywhere, it is in me also as I am. This existence is Satyam, and this Satyam is Atma, the Chaitanyam. Aitad Atmyam idagam sarvam, tat Satyam sa Atma, tatvamasi Shveta Ketu. That Sat is now Chit, and I own up as Sat Chit Atma. Mritkaryam sakalam gathadi satatam means earthenware of any form, be it pot, plate, jug, whatever, are all products of clay. Mritkaryam eva. Their substance is clay and existence is only verbal. Similarly, the substratum of this world is Sat, pure existence. Sat janitam sadatmakam idam akhilam sanmatram eva. Tat satyam, that independently existing Brahman is Sa Atma Swayam, the self, your very core, the consciousness principle. Yasmat nasti sataha param kimapi. Everything else is just mithya. Tasmat tattvamasi. Therefore, That existence, consciousness, Brahman, you are. And as that Brahman, you are Prashantam, ever tranquil, Amalam, Shuddha, or pure, Advayam, non-dual, Param, absolute. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anupama, for giving us a beautiful explanation of this very important mantra. This mantra is generally given to more advanced students on Vedanta because it is important to be able to understand the essence of Vedanta and to realize that tasmat, therefore, that's how it concludes. This is a Guru Vacha. Tattvamasi is the explanation coming from the Guru. How does a student have to take Tattvamasi? The student has to take it as Aham Brahmasmi. Therefore, Aham Brahmasmi. What kind of Brahman I am? Prashantam. The peace in me cannot be disturbed by any explosion in the world outside. I am Amalam. Anything that happens to the body and mind cannot sully me, cannot make me impure, because I am Atma Brahma. I am of a higher order of reality. I am that Brahman Advayam, which cannot be destroyed. And Yat Param, I am of the highest order. And therefore, this is a declaration within me, within my consciousness, that everything that exists is not apart from me. With this understanding, Dr. Anupama, I will request you to please chant this once again.
Mrit karyam sakalam ghatadi satatam mrinmatrameva hitam tatvat sajjanitam sadatmakamidam sanmatramevakhilam yasmat nasti satah param kimapi tat satyam sa atma swayam tasmat tattvamasi prashantam amalam Brahmadvayam yet param.
Thank you very much. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We now have an opportunity to study the most amazing 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gītā, titled Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. In this chapter, we will study in this class once again about the greatness of the Gita. Why is the Gita considered so sreshta? What is this Avathāra? And of course, the title of this chapter is worth knowing. What is this Jnana Karma Sannyasa? The word Jnana Karma Sannyasa has many meanings, and the more you understand the different meanings, you will be able to get more from this chapter. The word sannyasa means renunciation. Renunciation of karma through jnanam or through knowledge. And what is the real jnanam? The real me as Atma, I am akarta, I am abhokta. So, but there is this body and mind. This body and mind has to go through his prarabdha, has to go through his gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, and therefore there will be a lot of activities that my body and mind will be doing. But I have to constantly keep myself one step away from the body mind, allow the body to do, allow the mind to do whatever it has to do. So there will be action going on. So I'm not going to stop any actions, but I'm going to identify with the higher self, with the Brahman. And that is where you will understand what is this inaction and action. And all the highest elements of Karma Yoga will be discussed in this particular chapter. The speaker for today is neurosurgeon Dr. Satyanarayana, who will be speaking to us on the first 8 verses of this chapter. All our studies include a Tattva Bodha topic. And the Tattva Bodha topic studied is, what is this Jnana Yoga? Dr. Satyanarayana, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Today, we shall revise verses 1 to 8 of Gita chapter 14, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, and also on the topic of Tattva Bodha Jnana Yoga. In the first chapter of Gita, Vyasacharya revealed the human problems of samsara through Arjuna. These are raga, the problem of emotional dependence upon external factors; shoka, the grief or sorrow which is faced because of emotional dependence; and moha, inability to think or discriminate. When Arjuna faced these problems intensely in the battlefield, he surrendered to the Lord, accepting the Lord as his guru. In the second chapter, Krishna's approach was that self-knowledge alone can be the remedy. He gives the entire range of sadhanas required for this self-knowledge. Krishna talked about two stages of sadhana, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Karma Yoga was prescribed as a means of mental purity, and Krishna made very clear that Karma Yoga alone cannot give liberation. One has to go through Jnana Yoga, which involves self-inquiry through the scriptures under the guidance of a guru. Third chapter is an elaboration of Karma Yoga, and fourth and fifth chapters are elaboration of Jnana Yoga. We need to remember here that chapter 2 verses 12 to 25 had condensed Jnana Yoga. In verse 4.1, the blessed Lord said, I imparted this eternal yoga to the Lord's Son. Lord's Son taught to Manu, and Manu taught to Ikshvaku. Here, Krishna takes a small diversion in the first 8 verses, and this diversion has 2 topics. One is greatness of Gita, that is Gita Stuti, and second is Avathāra Rahasyam. Talking about greatness of Gita, Krishna says, Gita is a condensed form of Vedas themselves. Veda is looked upon as a Apaurusheya Shastram, and it has been coming down in the form of Guru Shishya Parampara. Therefore, Krishna as a Gitacharya is the real purpose of Avathāra, and Gita is a revised Veda. What was given in the beginning of creation as the Vedas, the same thing is given to Arjuna in the name of Gita. In verse 4.2, the Lord said, O Arjuna, the royal sages knew this, which is thus traditionally handed down. Due to passage of time, this yoga is lost in this world. Krishna says that this teaching disappeared from this earth or got weakened during passage of time. Lesser and lesser number of people were interested in this knowledge, and therefore Krishna revived the teachings because protecting this teaching was his job. In verse 4.3, the Lord said, the very same ancient yoga is this which has been taught by me to you now, because you are my friend and a devotee. This indeed is the highest secret. Even Vedic rishis declare that they are not the inventors of this wisdom. They themselves got it from their gurus, and their gurus from their gurus. This means beginning can never be traced. Krishna chose Arjuna for this teaching because Arjuna asked for it. Arjuna showed Shraddha and Bhakti and was ready to listen. Krishna adds, Arjuna, even if he had not asked, I would have told you because you are my friend. This wisdom is the greatest secret in the world. In verse 4.4, Arjuna asked, your birth is later. The birth of Lord's Son is much earlier. How am I to understand that this is you who had taught Lord's Son in the beginning of creation? When Krishna said that he alone taught the Vedic wisdom in the beginning of creation, Arjuna had this doubt. When there is such a gap between the age of Arjuna and beginning of creation, how can one reconcile that the teacher is one and the same? In verse 4.5, the blessed Lord answered, O Arjuna, many births of mine as well as yours have gone by. I know them all. O Arjuna, you do not know them. By the way of answering Arjuna's question, Lord Krishna is introducing the topic of Avathāra, the Lord's reincarnation. I am the original Vishnu who gave out the Vedic wisdom, and that Vishnu alone is in the form of Krishna, and behind the Vishnu Shariram then and Krishna Shariram now, the difference is only Vesha. But the Lord is only one. He elaborates, he describes the differences between Manushya Janma and Ishvara Avathāra in the terms of Karana Bheda, Swarupa Bheda, and Uddesha Bheda. In Manushya Sharira Grahanam, it is called as Janma or birth, whereas in case of Avathāra Sharira Grahanam, it is Avathāra or incarnation. In case of Manushya, birth is a fall, whereas in case of Avathāra, it is a willful descent. In terms of Karana Bheda, Manushya Janma is Ajnanat, whereas in Avathāra, it is Jnanat. In terms of Swarupa Bheda, Manushya is a samsari with Bhautika Shariram, that is from Maya through the intermediary process of 5 elements, whereas in case of Avathāra, it is a samsari with Mayika Shariram, which is directly from Maya. In terms of Uddesha Bheda, Manushya Janma is for Punya Papa Kshaya, that is to exhaust his prarabdha. With respect to Avathāra, it is for Loka Anugraha, for the upliftment of the world. Lord is a Nitya Mukta Swarupa, ever liberated, whereas Jiva is a Baddha Swarupa, where it is a bondage. For the Lord, life is a sport, whereas for Jiva, it is a drag or a burden. In verse 4.7, the Lord said, O Arjuna, whenever there is decline of righteousness and increase of unrighteousness, then indeed I create myself. So here, the purpose of Avathāra is given. Any harmonious system will have its own intrinsic protection device, like sneeze and tears, which are protection mechanism, and they are not present all the time, but whenever it is required only. The universe is a cosmic system, and whenever there is a disturbance, the world itself will find an appropriate method of defending the dharma. Avathāra is like immunity system of the universe. Thus, Bhagavan is a Shrishtikarta and also Sthitikarta. In verse 4.8, Krishna says, for the protection of righteous, for the destruction of unrighteous, and for the establishment of righteousness, I am born in every age. Dharma is protected by protecting the people who follow dharma. That is dharmika purusa rakshanena. And destruction of adharma is by destroying the people who are the cause of adharma. Adharma purusha nashanena. Adharmic people can be destroyed in 2 ways. One method is converting them from adharma to dharma, and the other method is by punishing the adharmic people. Brahmana sustains dharma by teaching. Kshatriya protects dharma by protecting dharmic people and by punishing adharmic people. Now, let us move on to the topic of Jnana Yoga. We have seen earlier that scriptures first present an ideal infrastructure for the fulfillment of human goals or Purushartha. The 4 goals of human life are Artha, the procurement of worldly goods for security, Kama, which is desire for comfort or luxury, and Dharma, which is building up of Punya. And the primary goal being Moksha, which is freedom from bondage. After presenting the infrastructure, the scriptures also present a course of discipline for the accomplishment of these goals. This course of discipline we classify into Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is meant to discover the essential oneness known as Aham Brahmasmi. Jnana Yoga is understanding this Mahavakyam. Next slide, please. Only dharmic mind can absorb Vedanta. If the mind is not dharmic mind, if it does not have healthy values, the mind is not a prepared mind. And without a prepared mind, if the Vedantic knowledge is given, it is like sowing seeds in sand on dry, barren, sandy ground. Even if you sow the best of seeds, nothing will happen. As fertile soil is required for growth of sapling, a prepared mind is needed for spiritual growth. Jnana Yoga means a course of discipline meant for gaining knowledge. Now the question arises, what knowledge? Jnana Yoga refers to self-knowledge or Atma Jnana, that is the knowledge regarding oneself. We already have some knowledge about our superficial personality, my date of birth, name of parents, height, weight, all this. But what we discuss in Jnana Yoga is essential nature of I, the higher nature of I, the Para Prakriti. The purpose of gaining this self-knowledge is that it gives us freedom or moksha purushartha, the highest goal called moksha. Moksha is the freedom from bondage or dependence. By moksha, we mean I am free from this problem caused by the world. By moksha, this means the presence of object will not cause strain in me and the absence will not create emptiness in me. This freedom is the result of self-knowledge. This freedom expresses in the form of threefold virtues which are very useful for human life. The threefold virtues of inner freedom are acceptance, courage, and discretion. Acceptance of that situation which cannot be changed, courage to change what can be changed, and discretion to know the difference between the two. This is presented in a prayer called Serenity Prayer. Life will become beautiful when I healthily accept all the choiceless situations and courageously change what can be transformed, and I am able to discern which is which. The next question is, how can I get this self-knowledge? Jnanam can be attained only by one method, and that is by using the instrument of knowledge. We call this pramanam. For example, if I have to get knowledge of the color of an object, I use instrument called eye. For hearing a sound, I use the instrument called ear. For the all the five instruments at my disposal are extrovert instruments capable of studying only the objective world or external world. None of these instruments is capable of studying the very subject behind this instrument. So I cannot study myself. There is a way out. If I have to see my own eyes, I have to learn to take the help of another external object or a factor, a mirror, to see my eyes. I should be humble enough to accept that my eyes cannot see directly themselves, and therefore I require the assistance of an external mirror. So I need to introduce a sixth pramanam or sixth factor that will serve as a mirror for gaining self-knowledge, and this is not within me, and this must be from outside. That sixth pramanam is called Shastra Pramanam, the scriptural teaching. We should be knowing how to use this mirror or scripture properly. Self-knowledge is not information or direct experience. It is freedom from self-ignorance. This Jnana Yoga consists of threefold exercise called Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Shravanam means hearing, exposing myself to a systematic scriptural teaching or handing of the scriptures by a competent guide for a length of time. The study has to be systematic because it is a gradual upbuild from beginning to the end. The study has to be continuous for a length of time during which no questions are allowed. We have to get the comprehensive teaching from all the angles, in all aspects, in all its totality. Mananam is reflection or consolidation of intellectual understanding. Here, I try to tie all the ideas of Vedanta and make a garland out of teaching. Many doubts or seeming contradictions will come. Generally, the beauty of teaching is, by the time you complete your teaching systematically, doubts will not be there because scripture themselves handle the possible questions. I have to have all my doubts clarified till I say, I am Paramatma, Aham Brahmasmi, I am immortal, I survive the death of the body, the world cannot affect me. Each of the statement I must be able to make from inner core of my heart. So, Mananam is a process of conviction, solving the intellectual problems. Whereas Nididhyasanam is contemplation or assimilation. It is transformation of emotions. It is the process of internalization or assimilation of this knowledge and removal of my habitual behavior. This also involves solving emotional problems in the light of Jnana. Unless the emotional problems are solved, I have not assimilated the knowledge totally. The present behavior I have developed very gradually. It is a habit, a conditioning that I have, I have to decondition myself. Only when the habitual behavior goes away do I get the full benefit of this knowledge. Assimilated knowledge alone nourishes me like assimilated food nourishes the body. It is not the amount of food I eat that matters. It is the amount of food that I digest alone that matters. As Swami Chinmayananda has put it very nicely, you may have gone through 10 Upanishads, but how many Upanishads have gone through you? Hence, conversion of intellectual knowledge into emotional strength is called Nididhyasanam. Coming on to the ladder of spiritual growth, it is from Karma Yoga to attaining Bhakti, to attaining Chitta Shuddhi, to attaining Jnana Yogyata, and attaining Jnanam and Moksha ultimately. Through Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam, a person becomes a Jivan Mukta, which is a state of being enlightened while alive, realizing that you are the absolute. And coming on to the conclusion, Atma Jnana is only path to moksha. Atma Jnana is possible by self-enquiry. Self-enquiry is possible by scriptural study, and scriptural study is possible only with the guidance of a competent guru. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Dr. Satyanarayana. That was a wonderful presentation, insightful, both about Jnana Yoga as well as the first 8 verses of the Bhagavad Gītā. I take this a privilege, I take this as an opportunity to reiterate, to emphasize some of the important things that you have already said. What is so great about the Bhagavad Gītā? What is the greatness of the Gita Stuti? And that we will see in the first verse itself, where Shri Krishna declares, long back, I have taught this teaching to Lord Son. This is how many of our texts and many of our Upanishads begin. We have the Mundaka Upanishad making a similar beginning. Brahma Devanam Pratama Sambhabhuva Vishwasya Karta Bhuvanasya Gopta, which means this teaching that we have, that we are going to study, has come none other than Brahma Ji created himself. So the Bhagavad Gītā, therefore, is not a teaching of Sri Krishna, but it is a sum and substance of all the Vedas. The Vedas are being so profound, and Sri Krishna will describe, although in the beginning I have taught this to others in a different kind of a parampara. This is a grihastha parampara. This is to the various Raja Rishis, those emperors. They may be Raja, they may be Kshatriyas, but even then they remained like a Rishi, they remained like a sannyasi. And this is another kind of a parampara, different from the traditional Guru Shishya parampara that we know of Narayanam Padmabhuvam. This is another trail of Vasishtam until we come to Sri Shankaracharya and his famous students. So we see now there are 2 different paramparas that have come to. When we come to the 3rd verse, Shri Krishna introduces a certain element of interest in this topic by bringing the word Rahasyam. I'm going to tell you a great secret. Whenever somebody tells you, I'm going to tell you a secret, then what happens? Our attention becomes more intense. We become more interested to know what is the secret that he's going to tell us. So one is, it brings about a certain amount of interest. But then there is something even greater. The greater thing is, we will see that not only in this verse, we will see it in the 9th chapter beginning. Idam tute guhyatamam pravakshyami. I'm going to tell you the highest secret. And in the conclusion of the 15th chapter, which is the climax of the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga. Oh Arjuna, I have given you the great secret. The 18th chapter you will see is a kind of a summary of the entire Gita. And in the verses 65 and 66, Sri Krishna gives the entire Gita in a form of a summary. And so before giving that summary, Sri Krishna gives this verse which says, Sarva Guhyatamam Bhuya Shrunu. I'm going to tell you the great secret once again. Now, many acharyas have described what is this great secret. To be able to understand this great secret, we need a certain amount of a prepared mind. And if my mind is prepared, I will be able to understand. Otherwise, I will hear it, but it will make no impact to me. This is a story that I have related before when Swami Chinmayananda brought the profound teachings of the Gita and the Upanishads. For the first time, he broke the tradition of giving these very sacred teachings to the large masses who may not have been initiated to these sacred teachings. A lot of orthodoxy felt that what he was doing was not right because he is giving pearls to people who may not be prepared for it. And they advised him, see, this is not our tradition. This is not the way. You are breaking much of our tradition. Thanks to people like Swami Chinmayananda and his students, this great teaching, which was given to very few people in the confines of the ashram on the banks of the Ganga and the Himalayas, are now available to all of us sitting in our own homes. Swami Chinmayananda, who is always full of humor, replied to all his critics, don't worry, he says, your secret will remain a secret, because it is only a prepared mind who will be able to understand. For the rest of them, it will be still words. The secret will remain a secret. The secret here is nothing but its sacredness. When you take it as sacredness, then the secret is revealed. Every great master of every tradition understand this secret. What is the secret which all our Vedas and which all realized masters in whatever tradition? This is an understanding from Pierre Thiel de Chardin, the French Jesuit, who had to say this, that we are not human beings with a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings who have forgotten our true nature and think that we are ordinary human beings. Now, this what I'm going to share, I need all your attention because this requires, and if what I can share to you about this lucid dream, you will be able to understand the essence of all Vedanta. A lucid dream means I am dreaming, but then I am awake. Normally, when you wake up from a dream, the dream disappears. But here, take a hypothetical situation where I have woken up from my dream, but the dream continues. Now I know that I am in my own dream. I'm watching my dream. I'm seeing my dream body interact with the dream world. This does not normally happen, but just understand, how did you wake up from your dream? Being a student of Vedanta, all of us have Shraddha. These things will come later in this topic itself. What does Shraddha mean? What my guru says, what the scripture says is gospel truth. I have 100% faith on this. And therefore, I believe whatever the guru and the teaching is very true. Now, my dream guru has come in my dream. And the dream guru tells me that this is all a dream. You are the creator of your dream. You are the sustainer of your dream. And after some time, the dream will get resolved into you. There is nothing in the dream world that is really going to affect your true nature. Although while you are in your dream and while you are in your dream body, you have to play like any dream body plays. You have to take care of your dream body and do whatever the roles that you need to do in your dream. But don't let yourself be affected, because the truth is you are of a higher order of reality. And therefore, if something really adverse happens to your dream body or the dream world, it should not really affect you, because you are comfortably sleeping on your bed. Now, this is all our teaching. As Atma, as consciousness, as Sat Chit, which is our true nature, which all Vedanta teaches us, this body and mind is only an instrument that will help me to interact with this world, which is part of my own creation. And therefore, anything that happens in this world cannot really affect me. And with this understanding, let us play whatever roles that we have to do very sincerely, but do not be affected by it adversely. When Sri Krishna introduced that he is the one who had taught the Lord Sun, who existed eons or yugas before, Arjuna had a very genuine doubt. How is this possible? Because you are a contemporary and the sun has been existing from that time. So Arjuna asks this general doubt. And Sri Krishna gives the answer of, I am aware, you are not aware. And all the process of Vedanta is, if I am aware of my true nature, I become awakened to that state, and then I will understand what this Avathāra is. In the beginning of this talk, Venkatesh Prasad introduced that Sri Krishna is revealing himself as an Avathāra. But if you can go back to the third verse of the third chapter, you will see in this verse, Sri Krishna has given the first hint that he is an Avathāra. Lokesmin Vividha Nishta Pura Prokta Mayanaga. Long back, I have made a certain division in society. Lokesmin Vividha Nishta Pura Prokta. Long back, I have made a certain form of a division in society, so that this Vedic wisdom is able to percolate to society more effectively. So probably that is the first hint that Sri Krishna is an Avathāra. What is the meaning of Avathāra? I know Dr. Satyanarayana has very nicely explained, but I want to reiterate a few important things. Avathāra comes from Avatarati. Avatarati means to come down. So an Avathāra is one who has consciously descended for a certain purpose. All of us have had a fall from our true nature. We do not know our true nature, and therefore, although we are Parabrahma, Paramatma, we are existing like ordinary human beings. But the more we understand through Guru Shastra Upadesha, our true nature is what? From Ajnanam, once Jnanam comes, then we realize our true nature is not very different from that of the Avathāra. I am of the same nature as Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna, being Ishvara, may have or will have superpowers. I may not have any powers, but that does not matter at all, because now I realize, by being a child of God, I am of the same nature as the divine. And with this understanding, let us understand, in a way, our nature is not different from that of an Avathāra. An Avathāra has a certain role to play. I have a certain role to play in the universe. And what is the role, which has already been explained? Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir. Whenever there is a decline, abhyutyatam adharmasya. When there is an increase in adharma, tadatmanam. I create myself. And then the final message that has come out in today's DISHA class is Paritranaya sadhuna. Sadhuna means all the good people. Trayate means to protect. What is Paritranaya? Pari means all around. For the all-round protection of good people, vinashaya tushkrutam, for the bad elements to be eliminated or to be neutralized, and to be able to establish dharma samsthapanaya. So that is the role of an avatar. With that, we will conclude the formal part, and now we go to the teaching quiz. Now, I will request Dr. Vasumati to initiate a teaching quiz where we will see how much we have understood of this section of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Dr. Vasumati, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to this session on teaching quiz pertaining to the topics covered in today's session, namely the first 8 verses, verse number 1 to 8 of chapter 4 and Jnana Yoga part of Tattva Bodha. To begin with, we'll deal with the 8 verses covered in today's session, the Bhagavad Gita verses. Verse number 1. In verse number 1, the Lord says that I have imparted this eternal yoga to the Lord's Son. So here, let's move on to the question pertaining to that verse. Krishna calls his teaching as Avyayam Yogam. What does that mean? What does this word Avyayam Yogam pertain to? Avyayam Yogam, it means the teaching which can never go out of date, which can never become obsolete, which is why this teaching is called also as Sanatana Dharma. Avyayam here means Sanatana. And let's move on to the next verse. This is verse number 2. Here Krishna says, Arjuna, the royal sages knew, and this was traditionally passed down as a parampara. The question pertaining to this verse could be, like, when he's in our tradition, we say that, let's look at the question number 2 pertaining to the verse. In our tradition, we say that the spiritual teaching, that's the knowledge, has been coming down from 2 paramparas. One parampara is the Kshatriya, consisting of Vivaswan, Manu, etc. And the other parampara is Brahmana parampara of Sanaka, Sanata, Sananda, etc. I mean, the 2 paramparas we can think of. Which one is Krishna referring to between the 2? The answer here is, as we know, Krishna is quoting Kshatriya parampara because both the teacher and the student belong to this parampara. The next verse, verse number 3, here Krishna says the same ancient yoga which has been taught by me to you now, is really a very highest secret. It's of a great order of secret. The question pertaining to this verse is here, when he's saying that I'm teaching to you, Krishna is mentioning that I'm teaching to you. The question arises, why did Krishna choose Arjuna for this teaching? There were so many people. There was Dharmaraya, there was other Pandava Putras also there. Why did he choose Arjuna for this teaching? The answer is very simple. Krishna chose Arjuna because Arjuna asked for it. Can we recall from which verse of 2nd chapter shows that Arjuna asked for this teaching? The purpose of DISHA is to carry with us all the verses, all the chapters we have learned, not leave them behind. So if we can recall this verse of chapter 2, where Arjuna has explicitly expressed his desire to be considered as a disciple by Sri Krishna. It is in chapter number 2, verse number 7, where Arjuna says, Karpanya doshopahata swabhavaha pruchami tvam dharma sammuda chetaha yat shreyasyam nishchitam bruhitan me shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. This is where he says, please consider me as your disciple. Moving on to the next verse. I'm your disciple, please tell me. Moving on to the next verse, verse number 4, where Arjuna expresses his confusion. So you see, your birth is later. The birth of son, I know your birth is later because you are my contemporary. The birth of Lord's Son is much earlier. Then how is that you have taught him also and you're teaching me also? So in this background, let's look at the question. Krishna's statement creates a doubt in Arjuna. In the earlier verse, we looked at that Arjuna has called himself a disciple and Krishna has agreed to be his guru. And as a disciple is asking a question addressed to the guru. So what is the bhava of this question? What should be the bhava of a question? A sincere disciple would question a guru. The answer is, Swamiji says, it is the bhava of Shraddha. Arjuna does not totally negate Krishna. He does not say, oh, what you're talking does not make sense. He says, because he has got great faith in whatever the guru is saying, Krishna in his role as a guru, he only asked for a clarification. The next verse, verse number 5, here Bhagavan gives an explanation. Say, many births of mine and yours have happened, but I know them all, you don't know them. The question in respect of this verse, let's look at what are the differences between the Manushya Janma and Ishvara Avathāra. Choose the appropriate option of these options. Let's look at the options. Option number A, Karana Bedaha. Birth of a Jiva is caused by ignorance and birth of Ishvara takes place because of his Sarvagnatnam, omniscience and knowledge alone. B, Swarupa Bedaha. That is nature difference. Jiva continues to be a samsari, a bound person with pancha bhautika shariram. Avathāra is nitya muktaha swarupa and asamsari with mayika shariram. C, karya bedaha or uddesha bedaha. The purpose of jiva janma is punya papakshayam, exhaustion of punyam and papam. Ishvara Avathāra purpose is protection of dharma and destruction of adharma. D, option D, all of the above. I know with the clear explanations we have had, it's not any brain teaser to choose all of the above. We have understood clearly what's Manushya Janma and what is Ishvara Avathāra. Moving on to the next verse, verse number 6. Here he says, though I am birthless and deathless, though I am the Lord of all beings, I take my birth through my own Maya, Krishna says. So the question here is, pertaining to verse number 6, what aspect of Avathāra is Krishna talking about in this verse? We know he's talking about, I'm birthless. Through Maya, I'm taking my birth. So what is the aspect of Avathāra of the three differences we saw? So the answer here is that Krishna here talks about the nature of Avathāra, the Swarupa Beda between Jiva and Avathāra, which is elaborated here. Moving on to the next verse, verse number 7. Yada yada hi dharmasa, which is a very popular verse. All of us know it by heart. Arjuna, whenever there is a decline of righteousness, or increase in unrighteousness, then I create myself. So here the question is, what aspect of Avathāra is Krishna referring to? What aspect of Avathāra does Krishna talk about in this verse? He's talking about essentially the purpose of Avathāra. Here Krishna talks about the purpose of Avathāra because he says, whenever there is a decline of righteousness, then increase of unrighteousness, I create myself. So the Karya Uddesha Beda between Jiva and Avathāra is elaborated here. So the last verse of today's topic of Bhagavad Gītā, verse number 8, Paritranaya sadhunam, he says, for protection of the righteous and the destruction of the unrighteous, I come again and again. So the question here we can look at as, how does question number 8. So here Krishna says, question, sir, how will the Lord protect dharma and how will the Lord destroy adharma? By what means? Krishna clearly says that in as many words as possible, the answer he gives out as, Krishna, I take Avathāra to support the dharmic people. How? Dharma is protected by protecting the people who follow dharma. And then we see the answer here, the adharma, and similar, only by destroying the people who are the cause of adharma can adharma be destroyed. So here we cover all the 8 verses which are explained in today's session. And we now move on to Tattva Bodha, where Jnana Yoga and virtues of inner freedom were discussed. The first question, the basic question on Jnana, before we begin with the Jnana Yoga is, What is the course of disciplines for the accomplishment of Purusharthas or goals? We have learned about Purusharthas, and what are those disciplines which lead us to our goals? Here the answer is very simple. We know the three disciplines are classified as Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. Moving on to the next question. What is Jnana or knowledge in this context? When we say Jnana Yoga, what does Jnana, the word Jnana, mean here? Knowledge is a very vast subject, very vast word, denotes so many things, so many objects. But what does it mean here when we say Jnana Yoga? The answer is, we should be very clear, the Jnana here is, in this context, the word Jnanam refers to self-knowledge or Atma Jnanam, knowledge regarding one's own self. Next question is, what is moksha? If we have to explain it in the most simplest way, the answer for moksha is freedom from bondage or dependence. So what in the next question we'll look at, like, what is bondage then? What causes bondage? We say freedom from bondage is moksha, then what is that which is holding us back? The answer here is, the bondage is caused by the first three Purusharthas. What were the first three Purusharthas? Dharma, Artha, and Kama. Dharma, Artha, Kamas themselves cause a bondage. And for that matter, anything or any being in creation can cause the bondage. The next question is, what are the two types of bondage? We've known what the bondage is, and we'll look at what kind of bondages can be caused because of these three Purusharthas. The answer here is, the presence of objects causes a type of problem called bharaha or weight, the stress of holding on to objects or people. And the absence of objects creates another type of problem called emptiness or loneliness. Both are equally problematic. The next question here is, what is the Triputi involved in Jnana Yoga? If you have to know about anything, any object, what is the three things that is involved? We know the Triputi here is Pramanam, Pramata, and Prameyam. What is this Pramanam? Any Jnanam, if you have to attain any Jnanam, we can attain it only by using an instrument of knowledge, which is called as Pramanam. Next, let's look at Pramata. The one who uses this instrument of knowledge is called Pramata. Then what is Prameyam there? The object that is known is called Prameyam. And the knowledge that is generated is known as Prama. So the Pramata uses the Pramanam to know about Prameyam and gains Prama in the process. The next question leading to from this Pramanam is, our scriptures have classified Pramanam as Paurusheya and Apaurushaya. What are they? The answer is, there are 5 instruments of knowledge at our disposal, and since these are available for human beings, they're called as Paurusheya Pramanani. What are the Apaurushaya Pramana? Like, the scriptures, the Shastra Pramana or Shabda Pramana is not already with us. It has to be brought from outside. Like, a mirror is needed to look at ourselves. And therefore, they are referred to as Apaurushaya Pramana. The next question, the last one in the series, what are the threefold exercises that the Jnana Yoga consists of? And this is something we are all aware of as students of Vedanta. The Jnana Yoga consists of threefold exercise known as Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
I would like you to remain for a while, Dr. Vasumati, to answer a particular question. You are asking everybody a question. I will ask you a question. I am so fortunate to have so many people interested and committed to understand and to bring out these beautifully made presentations. This teaching quiz by itself is so wonderful. Dr. Vasumati, can you share your learning experience preparing this particular quiz for us?
Sir, you would have seen me in the class also. Being a student is the most enjoyable, most fulfilling purpose of my life. Being a student brings in that inquisitiveness to know more, and having access to a guru like you brings out the confusions and then in the urge to learn in a more important way. And this process of preparing for the quiz has helped me in getting in better clarity in my own understanding through these questions, and trying to look out for appropriate answers with more clarity that helps me in understanding. And it's just not understanding, because understanding can be for a moment, but if we have to stick to that understanding for the for our lifetime, that is the repetitive shravanam, repetitive mananam, and this nididhyasa, which is leading us to nididhyasanam, which helps us to hold on to that knowledge and not leave it behind and forget the old and catch on to the new. And thanks to you, sir, that this has been possible. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vasumati. I am very sincerely grateful to Dr. Satyanarayana. See, all those who prepare are those who benefit the most. And this is what I'm requesting everybody in Param Vedanta. Whenever a topic is given to you, give your very 100% best, because you are the one who's going to benefit the most. I also have to thank Dr. Sundar, who's in the background, who has allotted these verses in a particular way so that in a given 1 hour, we will be able to study the essence of these very particular aspects of the Bhagavad Gita. And with that, we conclude today's class. Our next class on the 1st of July will be a summary of the most wonderful 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. That will be on the 1st of July. Venkatesh Prasad, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Vasumati, for a very beautifully conducted quiz. Thank you, Dr. Satya, for a wonderful presentation. That brings us to the end of today's class. We'll come back with DISHA 16 on Monday, 4th July 2022. Before that, coming Friday, that is on 1st July, let us join for a recap session of Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga at 6:45 p.m. local time. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.